Everyone, today our video is about concurrent programming fundamentals. So, what is the lifetime of concurrent threads? With the co-begin, parallel loops, or longed elaboration, threads are always properly nested. With the fork join, B-modal patterns are possible. We will look how the threads are implemented. Implementation of threads must be implemented on top of the OS process. Could put each thread on a separate OS process, but this is expensive. Processes are implemented in the kernel and need procedure calls. These are general purpose, which means extra features we don't need but must pay for anyway. At the other end, could put all threads onto one process. Means there is no real parallel programming. If current thread blocks, then none of the other threads can run if the process is suspended by the OS. Generally, some in between. We can see thread 11 implementation of threads. You can see an OS kernel and user space in this figure. So, a thread scheduler implemented in a library or language runtime package multiplexes threads on top of one or more kernel level process. Just as the process scheduler implemented in the operating system kernel multiplexes processes on top of one or more physical processors. Need to implement threads running on top of process. What do you mean by coroutine? A sequential control flow mechanism. The programmer can suspend the current routine and resume a specific other routine by calling transfer command. Input to transfer is typically a pointer. Multiple execution contests, only one of which is active, other and current are pointers to contest blocks. Store these contest blocks on a queue, and a thread can yield the processor and add itself to the queue if it is waiting for something else to complete. Yield voluntarily for fairness or be forced to by the scheduler. In any case, a new thread is removed from the queue and given the process once the current thread is. Run under block threads on a single process. Needs to get rid of explicit arguments to transfer. Ready list data structure. Threads that are runnable but not running. So DQ ready list transfer T. To do this safely, we need to save current somewhere. Two ways to do this. Suppose we are just relinquishing the processor for the sake of fairness, as in macOS or Windows 3.1, then enqueue ready list current reschedule. Now suppose we are implementing synchronization. Sleep on queue, enqueue queue current reschedule. Some other thread or processes will move us to the ready list when we can continue. Here this is the concurrent programming model. Data structures on a simple scheduler is shown in the figure. A designated current thread is running. Threads on the ready list are runnable. Other threads are blocked, waiting for various conditions to become true. If threads run on top of more than one OS level process, each such process will have its own current thread variable. If a thread makes a call into the operating system, its process may block in the kernel. Preemption. User use timer interrupts or signals to trigger involuntary yields. Requires that we protect the scheduler data structures. Procedure yield, disable signals, enqueue ready list current, reschedule, re-enable signals. Multiprocesses. Disabling signals doesn't suffice. Procedure yield, disable signals, acquire scheduler lock, that is spin lock, NQ ready list current, reschedule, release scheduler lock, re-enable signals, disable signals, acquire scheduler lock, spin lock, if not less than desired condition, sleep on condition Q, release scheduler lock, re-enable signals. Condition synchronization with atomic reads and writes is easy. You just cast each condition in the form of location x contains value y and you keep reading x in a loop until you see what you want. Mutual exclusion is harder, for example, spin locks. Much early research was devoted to figuring out how to build it from simple atomic reads and writes. Decker is generally credited with finding the first correct solution for two processes in the early 1960s. Dijkstra published a version that works for n processes in 1965. Peterson published a much simpler two process in 1981. In practice, we need a constant time and space solution, and for this, we need atomic instructions that can do more. Repeatedly reading a shared location until it reaches a certain value is known as spinning or busy waiting. A busy wait mutual exclusion mechanism is known as spin lock. Simple example, test and set, which sets a variable to true and returns boolean indicate if it was false. So it is the code that we are using. Type lock is equal to boolean false. Procedure acquire lock, ref L lock, while not test and set, while L nothing spin, procedure release lock, then L is equal to false. Barriers are provided to make sure every thread completes a particular section of code before proceeding. Implementing as a number initialized to the number of threads and a boolean then is equal to false. When a thread finishes, it subtracts 1 from the number and waits until done is set to 0. The last thread that sets the counter to 0 will set done equal to false, freeing all the threads to continue. Note that counter means that we need on time for n process to synchronize and continue, which is too long in some machines. Best known is log n, although some specially designed hardware can get this closer to O1 in practice. The problem with the spin locks is that they waste processor cycles. Synchronization mechanisms are needed that interact with the thread process scheduler to put a process to sleep and run something else instead of spinning. Note, however, that spin locks are still available for certain things and are widely used. In particular, it is better to spin than to sleep when they expected. Spin time is less than the rescheduling overhead. Then we use semaphores. Semaphores was first proposed scheduler-based synchronization mechanism and remains widely used. Described by the Dijkstra in 1960s and are in Algol 68. Conditional critical regions and monitors came later. Monitors have the highest level semantics, but a few sticky semantic problems they are also widely used. Synchronization in Java is a sort of hybrid of monitors and CCRs. Java 3 will have true monitors. Shared memory synchronization in ADA 95 is yet another hybrid. A semaphore is basically just a counter. It has an initial value and two operations P and V for changing that value. A thread that calls P automatically decrements the counter and waits until it is non-negative. A thread that calls V automatically increments the counter and wakes up any waiting threads. Binary semaphore will be initialized to 1 and any PV operations occurring. This is basically a mutual exclusion lock. P acquires the lock and V releases it. More generally, if initialized to some k, it will allocate k copies of some resource. A semaphore, in a sense, keeps track of the difference between the number of P and V operations that have occurred. A P operation is delayed until p less than or equal to k, the initial value of the semaphore. This is how we are implementing synchronization. It is generally assumed that semaphores are fair in the sense that process complete P operations in the same order they start then. Problems with the semaphores. They are pretty low level. When using them for mutual exclusion, for example, it is easy to forget a P or a V, especially when they don't occur in strictly matched pairs, because you do a V inside the statement, for example, as in the use of spin lock in the implementation of P. Their use is scattered all over the place. If you want to change how process synchronize access to a data structure, you have to find all the places in the code where they touch that structure, which is difficult and error prone. So this is all about concurrency programming fundamentals and implementing synchronization. I will come in the next video. Till then, bye.